Alright, so, hey my fellow Rumble Maniacs. Mr. Rumble Rose is here, and welcome to yet another random ass video that I'm kind of dubbing, I guess for the time being, as something like, Rumble's Random Ramblings. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to do this because because I've been like, I was kind of in that mood per se where I want to kind of like get some things off my chest and all that. And last time I did this was when I talked about Elden Ring, and more specifically whenever I was talking about one boss in particular, which is Melania, um, and everything like that. Like talking about like how, in my honest to God opinion, she needs a nerf. No matter what people would say about her otherwise, and about like how she needs nerve. Talking about like how talking about like the one thing that apparently kills people a lot more than anything else that she does, and and some like the changes and stuff like that that I would honestly recommend FromSoft doing with her fight and everything. Well, today I kind of wanted to talk about another little subject that's been sort of brewing in my mind, and as you can see, we are currently in Dead by Daylight because that's the game that I wanted to talk about with you guys. Now, there's a handful of stuff that I could talk about, honestly, but the one thing I guess I can kind of, I guess like the one thing that always kind of like, you know, brings itself front and center, like, is, um, I'm going to kind of refer to it as like the quote unquote killer entitlements. So, the reason why I'm talking about this is because like I've seen like a lot of videos, and especially there's this one video quite recently that I saw on Twitter. I saw this one video on Twitter, and it just got me thinking. Like it just got me thinking, and got me kind of like wanting to like really like be vocal about this in a way, and everything like that. And essentially, what this video was someone who was playing Survivor had was had brought a BP offering. If you don't know what BP is, it's a short way of saying blood porn offering. It's basically a blood porn offering, because there's different types of offerings that you can go do in DVD. From like map offerings to um, from like map offerings to like RNG offering type stuff. I see that mainly from like the fucking I see like mainly like that from example um from like the hook spawning situation. That was just kind of like a thing that kind of came to my mind. Um, so basically in the nutshell, this person, which I've actually gone and look up because they replied to me and stuff like that, but this person named the Foxy Sly had posted a video about a interaction that they had with a killer who apparently was so entitled that they bitched and moaned about BP offerings, um, and everything like that. And this ain't the first time that I've seen like a video like this. I feel like there's this one video from another user named Aaron Duke where there's a person who was like, oh, I like he like bloody party streamers, on anything that's like increases BP offering for one and all is like a red flag and all that. And it just honestly just got me so fucking worked up, because like it's just so annoying how some killer mains are, who do shit like this. And it kind of, and I'd say like kind of like if it's a bad rap, if it's a bad rep on other people who play killer, even if they might not be like like 100% dedicated to always playing killer and stuff like that, and it's just so annoying where it's like, oh, it's like, oh, fucking, um, it's like, oh, fucking, no one should be able to go past like a certain point with, in the game of having like X amount of points, so I'm just gonna just, like, slug everyone, let them all bleed out, and all that. It's just like, how much of a jackass do you have to be in order, to be that selfish and, that entitled and everything? Like, and like, fucking, I know that, like, DVD is known to have, like, a lot of toxicity in it and everything like that, and, like I've had my fair share. Like, I've had my fair share, of people, like, want to be complete assholes to me for whatever reason, because, like, um, say, for example, right off the bat, as you can see right here, Skull Merchant, like, because, lo and behold, it's like, yes, I play Skull Merchant, I main the bejesus out over, and everything like that, and, you know, people have all, and, like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a handful of people, you know, come at me and, bitch and whine and complain about just because I play Skull Merchant. I mean, hell, like, hell, I remember a time, during one of the random Chaos Shuffle events that I had, where I was playing Skull Merchant and everything. Um, I played the game as her and all that, and there was someone I killed, and they happened to also be on PlayStation, and they messaged me, and they pretty much messaged me saying something along the lines of like, people who play Skull Merchant are honest, are bad people and everything like that. And I'm like, and it's just like, and I remember, like, afterwards, like, after the match and everything like that, I went on a bit of like a rant per se, just to, just like to voice my opinion and all that. And I remember also, like, I sent that very same video to another user by the name of the Mr. Headache, also known as Brand, which I know he's probably not gonna watch this, like, ever. But, like, I really wanted to, like, there's a part of me that, like, really wanted to hear, him, like, there's probably been a wanted to, like, get his reaction and stuff like that to the things that he said after the match. Because I wanted, like, just, because I wanted, like, to hear what he had to say, like, get his 2 cents on the matter. But I guess I'm partially okay with how things are, because, because during the match, that's when, the person I killed, was on PSN, like, messaged me and all that. But, I'm not, like, mad at Mr. Headache or whatever like that, like, it's just saying, like, but I also did it, because, like, hey, I wanted to, see what he thought of the match and everything. But yeah, like, just some of the things that, like, some killer mains, people who play killer do, and it's like it's just so stupid and so annoying, and it's like, the one thing that just grinds my gears is, people is just killer players, who bitch and whine, saying like, oh, like like so and so, or these people brought BP offerings because they're gonna try and be, because they're going to be, and then it's like in their mind, basically, like, they think anything that's BP related is going to equal as a sweat fest, and it's like, and it's like, where did this whole idea come from? Like, where did this whole idea come from? Like, oh, everyone's gonna be like trying hard, things like that. It's like, dude, it's people playing the game, okay? Like, like, whenever I play DVD, whether it be like, whether it be like Killer or Survivor, like, I try the best that I can, all right? Like I try just as much as, you know, the opposite end, or the same, or people on the same thing, like trying to do their thing as like what I'm doing. They're just they're playing the game, trying to do their best and everything like that. And sometimes sometimes there are going to be those moments where um, things are not going to go your way. Like say for example, um, like say for example, you're playing Survivor, right? Maybe like you're doing some solo queue action, and it's like and like fucking you're solo queue on, you're playing Survivor. And unfortunately you get found, get put on the hook, for the first time, but then it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, fucking, um, no one's coming to save, no one's coming in for the save. You get left a second hook, everything like that. And sometimes it's like, and sometimes it'd be like, oh, like now they come and save me, or it's like, oh, I died on first hook, but I didn't really get to play in the game. I've even had those moments where, where like, people, I've even had those moments where it's like fucking, like I'm playing, like I'm trying to like, play a game and all that, and like people get hooked and they go and they try and like 4% pretty much killing themselves on hook, and then I go in for the save and all that, and then or like like another example, pretty more or less is like I get left a second hook, I get saved, and all of a sudden fucking killer comes after me, and it's like gee, thanks, man, like I got left all this time, and I barely got to do fuck all and everything, and I. And I say like those are moments where he's really like you could be like you could be annoyed, you could be kind of pissed off and all that, but it's like, but as long as like you don't go to such extremes about like like messaging people, telling them to like quote unquote unalive themselves, or say say crazy ass slurs, or or anything like that's like out of line, over the top and stuff like that. I mean, and I will admit, like I've had moments where it's like I'll message someone, I'll be like maybe like I'll be like maybe like I'll just send like the like the long like dots and all that, or like say, or like I was like, you need to get that tunnel vision fixed, or something like that. But like I've had moments where I'd probably like message someone or whatever, but I wouldn't go to that kind of extreme lengths of some of the crazy shit that I've seen people say to other people. But yeah, like the one thing I've always about like the killer entitlement situation is always like the one thing has always been like the fucking BP offerings. Like I can't really stand those who get so pissy and trying like just to ruin people's day, but like because like, oh fucking they brought in so it's offering, so I'm going to like like some sort of like offering thing, like especially like to help them like gain BP. So I'm gonna completely make their game miserable. Like I'm gonna just like tunnel them out, maybe slug them, let them bleed out, whatever. It's just like fucking grow up, okay? Like just fucking grow up, okay? Like sometimes you might even be like lucky as hell about like for some of the offerings that you will get from people, especially like from things like like anniversary items, where most of the time, if not all the time, like it's a thing like for everybody, not just for like survivors, but also for killer as well. I mean, maybe it's like some bloody party streamer and stuff like that. It's just it's just like just shut up about the BP offerings, and everything like that. If it if it if it if it if it triggers you that much, just fucking just fucking like DC, or fucking or better yet, just like if it triggers you that much, just close your game or stuff like that. Just make it to where like the people who are in the game, it's like you know, just go back to the lobby or something like that, you know? And another thing, another thing that's been kind of, that's kind of pissed me off about, you know, about some of the, you know, the killer entitlement is, you know, killers who complain about Swifts. Because, this is, I feel like this is like a random ass little stereotype or something like that, you know, but every time that I've seen someone who plays killer, whether they main them 100%, you know, 90, you know, 50, whatever, they always think that just because, you know, someone is a Swift. Sorry about that. Like, apparently some killer people, you know, some killer mates think that, you know, just because that, you know, so, like, you know, X amount of people are in a Swift, that they're always on comms. When, you know, that's not always the fucking case, okay? Like, and I can, and, you know, like, and I can say, I can give myself pretty much an example, more or less, you know, um, cause, like, when I'm not streaming DVD on my channel, you know, especially like when I, you know, on my Twitch channel and everything like that, more often than not, I will play some DVD with a few friends over on his channel. Like, you know, I'll often, you know, go over to his channel, you know, hang out, you know, play some DVD, you know, play some Survivor and all that, you know, and everything, and you know, I often Swift with them a lot. I often Swift with them a lot, and you know, and I think like he might have said it best, even though I can't really remember everything like word for word. But like, yeah, we are Swift, but we're not on comms. You know, like we're like you know it's like we're like yeah we're Swift, but we kind of play we somewhat play the game like it's still like a solo queue type of situation because you know we don't always really communicate and everything like that. Like hell I'll admit like fucking you know whenever like I load up into the game, right? Like whenever we load into a match, you know, and everything like that, it has you know as a Swift, you know, whether it be like a 2 for 3 for or you know 4 person Swift. I always focus on the game as much as I can. You know, like I don't always have like one ear on the game, you know, the other ear on the stream because you know like because for one like it's fucking distracting. You know, 'cause it's like hey you know gotta try and put all my attention into the game so that way, you know, I don't, you know, somehow fuck anything up. Now, am I perfect? No. You know, like, I'm not, you know, the perfect, you know, survivor. You know, I may, you know, came to do some things that are somewhat, you know, fucked up, you know, in terms of like, playing as Swift and all that, but still, you know, like fucking Swifts do not always equal comms. And yes, I know that like you know, and yes, I know what it's like, you know, to go up against a Swift who are all on comms. Like I get that, I really do. You know, like I've had like you know, of all the times I play killer, I've had you know, like I've had a handful of matches where you know, like I'm on like you know, I'm going up against a Swift, and you know, they're all on comms and all that. And it's like it's not cheating as you know these you know, killer, you know, these killer mains like that. It's not cheating, okay? You know, I say like it's not cheating. It's just maybe slightly unfortunate because you know, like, you know, because you know, for those that are in, you know, like in a call or you know, party chat, whatever, but like, hey, you know, they can build, you know, they can be able to communicate and all that, but it's nothing that's like, oh, this is cheating. Oh, this is a bannable offense or whatever, you know, and everything like that. It's just you know, that's just how it is. You know, sometimes you know you might not always you never know what to really expect. Okay, like overall, I say every time you load over to a game, no matter what side you're on, killer, survivor, you never know what to expect when you go in, when you load into a game because, sometimes, it could be a decent game where it's like, oh, like I got like X amount of gens done, but I ended up dying, or it's like, or like in the other scenario where it's like, oh, like all the got all the gens done, got X amount of people out, things like that, or hell, fucking, you might have those moments where, like a killer, like someone who's playing killer, is pretty chill. It'll be like, oh, like maybe like, I might like, to look at everyone, just, let them do their thing, and just head on out. Or, you might have those, those shitty type moments where, like, everyone, gets like slugged on the, like everyone gets slugged on the ground around like 4 or 5 gens and all that. It's like I've had all those, I've had a lot of shit like that happen, like on both sides. Hell, I remember quite recently, me and a friend of mine, we were playing some, we were in two-person Swift because no one was really joining us at the time, and like, and we got paired up against a couple of other people, and one of them one of them was it was a survivor, and that one survivor was legit cheating. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, how do you know this, Rumble? Well, there's this perk, I believe it's called Dark Sense, where it's like, when the person who gets, who gets put on the hook, who has that perk, who has that perk, whenever that person who has that perk, is put on the hook, the auras of all the survivors were revealed and everything like that, and, that's how we knew. Like, that's how we knew that this one person was cheating because because basically like, they were crouching and they were just like teleporting and stuff all over the place. Me and him ended up DCing because we didn't want to be a part of that. But it's just like I said, you never know what to expect. You know, and that's and I think that's kind of like the random beauty of it, of playing like online multiplayer games like Dead by Daylight. Okay. And like I say, like whenever I play as killer, what I'm doing, what I'm just, like, just trying, like, just to, like, do some dailies, or maybe, like, do some dailies, tones, or, just, just to play, just to maybe get, like, my killer grade up, something like that, or something like that, like, you never, even I don't know what I'm going to be getting myself into when it comes to, a lot of, um, of the games that I go into. Especially, when I like maybe like I'm playing a skull merchant because because like I know that even though that she's like nerfed to the ground or whatever, that people still don't like facing her even though it's honestly pretty stupid, and everything like that, and let's face it, it honestly is because it feels like because it feels like most of the time people just don't really seem to really care about like trying to like learn how to go up against her and everything like that. And just be like, oh, I'm gonna just like just fucking DC or just like kill myself on hook on on the first thing, right? I mean, hell, I think I might have done like I don't know for sure if I like managed to upload it to my YouTube channel or whatnot, but hell, I remember one of my random matches that I did on stream. Um, I loaded up into a game playing a skull merchant because, like I said, she, I man her more than anyone else really. But but I shit you not, right? Um, I load up into a game as her, and someone brings a map offering for Area Crows because Area Crows is going to be one of those like like one of those most survivor-sided maps that you could possibly ever come across in in that game, right? And I shit you not, we load up to the game, do like a little like 360, or like well not 360, but like maybe like a 180 pan of like doing like camera turn and going to first person and all that. I shit you not, I take a few steps, at most, like a few steps at most. I throw only one drone. I fill up on like one fucking drone. Also, dung, dung, dung. Three people DC, and and everything like three people DC, which leads me to possibly speculate that this was like a three-person Swift. Like a three-person Swift. The other person in that match did not DC. They stuck it out, everything like that, and I said it to and I was like, you know what? If this person stays, they're gonna get hatch or exegate, whatever. I'm not gonna bother hooking them. I'm not gonna kill them. Let them do their thing. Get some like X amount of BP, whatever. And let them go. And I did. I ended up killing the three bots. I let the other person go, which I believe the person I believe the other person was Laura Croft. But yeah, I let them go. Um, Everything like that, and I found out that one of the people who DC'd was the one who brought the map offering. But it's like, yeah, like just the entitlement and everything like that. It's just like mind-bogglingly annoying. Especially like on the killer side, because it's like because like in the people who play killer, like I said, whether it be you main them 24/7, 365, or just every now and then, like it's just stuff like that makes us look bad. And I really hate it. And it's like I just really hate it, honestly. It's like if from like the whole situation of like of like fucking about like killers who bitch about people who bring BP offerings to um saying like oh like fucking Swifts, oh people those are on Swift that are Swift are always on comms, or stuff like that, or you're just doing stuff and things like say like say like those who take a body block, or breaking the rules or whatever. Because like I shit you not, like there's this one person I don't know who the fuck they are, and I honestly could really care less. But I've seen like a few videos from different people on this one person, but like they always complain about like their stupidest shit. And one of the things being it's like oh those like survivors who body block a killer to help out their teammates and all that. It's like, oh, that's breaking the rules, and and that's reportable and all that. When it's really not. Like, like I know what it's like, to I know what it can be like, to fucking like have a moment where it's like, oh, like I'm trying to like like get this person out, like they're on like maybe like they're injured or on death and all that. It's like and like so and so comes to like body block me, like take the hit and all that. It's like I get it. Like I've been down that road before, and it's not toxic. It's not toxic. It's not reportable or anything like that. It's called being a good teammate. Like I get it. Like you want to be able to try and help your teammates out in any sort of way. Would be like body blocking. So that way they can't get hit. Or something like that. It is what it is. But I reckon that's all I got to really say, everything like that. But it's just, again, like just some of the killer entitlement stuff. It's just mind-boggling, with how some people who play killer act, and everything like that. It's just, fucking, like bitching about BP offerings, complaining about people on Swift saying that they're always on comms when you don't when you can't both really prove that or anything like that, or people who say like body blocking stuff is reportable when it's just like taking a hit for a teammate and things like that. It's just honestly stupid. Like like it's the whole thing is just as stupid as saying like oh like ex killer here, like people who play them or are all the same of like like say like say for example, like just for example, just to kind of close things off, but like You know, all that stuff that, Killer Main's, bitch about, oh, the stupidest thing, that's just about as stupid as those who complain about, like, say, people who play Skull Merchant, are all the same, but, like, how, they only do this, that, and the other, when, that's not always the case, like, it's just, I feel like it's, like, like, discriminating against, other players, stuff like that, and it's overall stupid. But, yeah, like, and I know that, like, and I know, like, most likely, that, like, everything's gonna go from, like, like, in one ear and out the other and all that, but I don't know, I just wanted just to randomly just get it off my chest, just say my little 2 cents and all that, Whether you agree or disagree, it's your thing, but I figured I'd say it for the most part because, I'm someone who plays killer every now and then, like, I've had my handful of experiences, on one, like, on this side and everything, and also, well, as for, the other and all that. It's just like, at the end of the day, just people just, sometimes people are just, utterly stupid. That's the best way I can put it. It's like, I know that, like, not everyone in the DVD community, or, like, like, toxic pieces of shit, it's like, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna, like, reward them, like, they want to, like, tear each other's head off, stuff like that, but there are sadly those people, who are complete jackasses and just honestly should not really play the game. But I hope you enjoyed my little random ass rambling and stuff like that and everything. As always, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to, leave a video a like, maybe leave a comment or two, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also, feel free to follow me on Twitch because I often stream there quite a bit. But until I see you in the next video or live stream, take care everybody, and take care of yourselves out there.